2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way, and I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. And by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie, that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
But I have, you know how many...
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to...
Let's not act like children.
Whenever senior citizens get hyped about golf like this, you know it means they don't joke about their swings. But believe it or not, Old Joe and Grandpa Don weren't the first White House bosses to get serious with golf. U.S. presidents have been hitting the links since President William McKinley made the first presidential putt in 1897. After him, most of his successors have also taken a swing at the sport, but some have been more successful than others. So let's look at 12 of the best U.S. presidential golfers and their actual handicaps. William Howard Taft, 1909 to 1913, handicap 20. Taft was arguably the best golfer to make it to the Oval Office, and that had nothing to do with his size. Okay, maybe a little. He was obviously a big boy, which was probably why he thought of golf as a splendid form of exercise. And as all golf addicts are bound to do, he exercised a lot. So much that his outrageous playing hours became a hot topic during his campaign. Theodore Roosevelt was the guy before him, and he was forced to advise Taft to quit the sport altogether. But when the golf head wouldn't drop the habit, Roosevelt tried to stop him by seeking re-election for a 3rd term. However, even though Taft beat the odds to win the 1908 election, he could never beat the course. After logging thousands of hours doing his favorite hobby, he rarely broke 100, and his best handicap was a humble 20. Franklin D. Roosevelt, 1933 to 1945, handicap 8. FDR was the first U.S. president to show a respectable amount of golf skills, but that was mostly because he started golfing earlier than most. He was only 12 when he got into the swinging lifestyle, and around this time, he and his friends made themselves a 9-hole course by clearing a field near his childhood home. In college, he was the 17-year-old treasurer of the Campobello Golf Club, where he won the club championship at age 22. But by the time he turned 39, polio took golf and many other things from him. Still, it could never take his love of the game away. So when FDR became president, he funded the creation of dozens of municipal golf courses through his public works projects. And till today, this remains the strongest presidential legacy in golf. But before the polio, FDR was able to get his handicap to an 8. And that made him a force on the course among his friends and fellow politicians. Dwight D. Eisenhower, 1953 to 1961, handicap 18. Eisenhower was a man after Taft's heart, because he too got high on the golf a lot. Apart from being one of Augusta National's star members, he was also a pal to the pros. In fact, his best buddy on the course was none other than the legendary Arnold Palmer. They were so close that they teamed up to win a charity event in 1964. However, Ike's greatest contribution to presidential golf was the putting green he installed on the White House lawn. Before him, nobody had brought golf that close to the White House. And for the first time in history, presidents could properly practice their putts from home. But even with regular practice and over 800 rounds played in 8 years, he could only nudge his handicap up to a decent 18. Still, that didn't stop Golf Week from naming him Golfer of the Century in 2000. John F. Kennedy, 1961 to 1963, handicap 7. Before becoming USA's #1 man, JFK called his predecessor Duffer-in-Chief to shade him for his 18 handicap. Now, if you missed the burn because you aren't familiar with the lingo, the truth is, Duffer was the worst thing you could have called an avid golfer like Eisenhower. It's up there with every slur you can think of, which was why neither Trump nor Biden could say it on national television. Also, who knew JFK was saucy like that? To go after another man's game, though, you gotta have the skills to back up the talk. And Kennedy did. He was a member of Harvard's golf team while he was at Cambridge, and he took that ability with him to the White House. He played regularly in private at the Burning Tree Club in the Washington, D.C. area. And although he skipped holes and rarely completed a full 18, he played enough holes to earn a 7 handicap, which is a far cry from Ike's 18. Yikes! Richard Nixon, 1969 to 1974. Handicap 12. Nixon picked up golf while serving as Eisenhower's Veep, which is what usually happens when you roll with golf heads like Ike. They always find a way to pull you into the game. And if you're like Nixon, you might just find out you're a natural at it. Nixon became so good that he once broke 80. But 2 years into his second term as president, the Watergate scandal took him off the fairways. With that much controversy brewing around him, the last thing he wanted to be caught doing was enjoying a game of golf. So, in the middle of the crisis, he removed Eisenhower's putting green, and he never picked up a club again until he resigned in 1974. But before he fell into hot water, he lowered his handicap to a warm 12, which is remarkable if you started as late as he did. Gerald Ford, 1974 to 1977. Handicap 12. Unlike Nixon, Ford mixed it up with golfers a lot, and as a result, he once had the pleasure of outdriving Arnold Palmer and Gary Player. In fact, after he pardoned Nixon in 1974, the next thing he did was book it to the opening of the World Golf Hall of Fame. And there, he played around with the big three of Arnie, Player, and Jack Nicklaus. His closeness to the sport allowed him to enjoy a couple of golf firsts, too. Besides being the first member of the USGA, he was also the honorary chairman of the first President's Cup. And because of him, the incumbent of every host country now gets to be the honorary chairman at every President's Cup. Oddly enough, for a man whose ball often mistook the spectators for the flag, Ford frequently broke 90. He probably owed his 12 handicap to all the lessons he stole from rubbing shoulders with some of golf's greatest magicians. George H.W. Bush, 1989 to 1993. Handicap 11. Golf was already a huge part of Bush's life way before the White House. His dad and maternal grandpa were both presidents of the USGA, and that grandpa founded the Walker Cup. However, those men raised an unconventional golfer in Bush. For example, he didn't stall on every shot and stroll to every spot as most people do. Instead, he played what he called aerobic golf. He simply found his ball, hit it, and moved on to the next shot. And playing this way, he once finished a round in an hour and 20 minutes. To top it off, he wasn't even sacrificing much for speed. He still managed a healthy 11 handicap while playing at the speed of light. So it's not surprising that the fastest golfer in White House history was inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame in 2011. Bill Clinton, 1993 to 2001. Handicap 12. Clinton was quite an interesting character on the course. For one, he was a left-hander who played golf right-handed. But he wasn't just ambidextrous, he was also, duplicitous? Apparently, he took free mulligans every time he flubbed a shot. And because of how bad his games would go, he rarely kept score. However, he did do some things for presidential golf. He brought back Eisenhower's putting green, and added to that, he hosted PGA Tour events and played in a presidential pro-am alongside Ford and H.W. Bush. But if you can forgive the mulligans, then the story of him coming into the White House with a 16 handicap and leaving with a 12 might just be true. George W. Bush, 2001 to 2009. Handicap 11. Bush 2.0 didn't just look like his old man, he also played golf like him. I mean, who needs cardio when you have aerobic golf as your heirloom? He wasn't as snappy as his pappy though, but he maintained a nice game. And according to him, he once recorded a 77 at Augusta, which is beyond incredible for a casual golfer. You might respect it a lot more after watching some of your faves struggle to crack 80 on that turf. But just 2 years into his first term, 9/11 happened. So as the US geared up for the Iraq War, he also put his golf bag away. And because of that conflict, he never played another round in office. But after his presidency, he got back in action and created the Warrior Open in honor of US servicemen. Then, in 2019, he got his first hole-in-one at 72. And for a guy who once described his golf game as mediocre, a 15 handicap is not bad at all. Barack Obama, 2009 to 2017. Handicap 13. As the first black president in U.S. history, Obama could say he's the Tiger Woods of the White House. But on the golf course, he was much closer to Phil Mickelson because he was also a lefty. Most people don't know how much Obama golfed, mainly because he was more popular for hooping. So it's always a revelation to find out he actually played around every 9.5 days. And Donald Trump would later call him out on that. Like Nixon, Ford, Reagan, and Bush, he also played with customized balls, which he paid for out of his own pocket. The balls had POTUS on one side and 44 on the other. So if you found one of those, you might want to trade it online for good cash. In his own words, Obama kept an honest 13 handicap while in office. Joe Biden, 2021 to 2025, handicap 6.7. Biden is a proper late bloomer. We all know he was past his prime when he arrived in the White House in 2021, but he somehow managed to get very good at a game he only started playing in 2001. After the bug got him, he signed up at 2 golf clubs in his hometown of Wilmington, Delaware. And during his first rodeo as Veep, he was seen regularly working on his putting on Clinton's green. Also, Trump might have had a thing or two to say about Biden's golf. But Joe's claim of a 6 handicap is actually not far from the truth. According to the USGA, he once registered a 6.7 handicap. But he hasn't posted a score since 2018. Donald J. Trump, 2017 to 2021 and 2025 to date, handicap 2.8. Before Trump's first coming, he was the loudest critic of Obama's golfing time, but the golf superfan would end up spending more time on the course than his predecessor. As a real estate mogul, he owns or operates some of the biggest golf courses in the world. But besides the obvious business connection to the sport, he also just loves golf. He once told Golf Digest, "I played golf with my friends, and then I started to play with the hustlers, and I learned a lot. I learned about golf, I learned about gambling, I learned about everything." From that statement, it's clear that golf is a big part of his life. But in 2024, he almost lost his life playing it. In September of that year, weeks after an assassination attempt in Pennsylvania, Trump went out on the course where another suspected assassin was waiting. But luckily for him, the bad guy was caught. However, Trump's golf opponents haven't been as lucky. He was only bragging to Biden because he actually knows his stuff. But while many have praised him for his abilities, he's also been accused of cheating by multiple people. And whether rule breaking is involved or not, he's played at a phenomenal 2.8 handicap, which is why he is Golf Digest Golfer-in-Chief. The presidents who didn't make it to this list just weren't good enough. But as for Jimmy Carter, Harry Truman, and Herbert Hoover, they just didn't care for golf. But I know you do. So let me know how true you think these handicaps are in the comments. And what would you like to watch next on Golf Plus?